Have you ever wondered what truly awaits us in the final moments of our lives? Many people on the edge of death describe vividly similar visions, encounters with deceased loved ones, a tunnel of light, and a serene sense of calm that defies explanation. These recurring themes have intrigued humankind for centuries, yet few have studied them as extensively as Dr. Elisabeth Kübler-Ross, a pioneering psychiatrist and researcher who spent more than 2 decades investigating the experiences of dying patients. In the passages that follow, we will explore her extensive observations, the astonishing near-death narratives she collected, and the lasting impact they have on our understanding of the human soul. Elisabeth Kübler-Ross' fascination with mortality began when she was a young girl hospitalized with pneumonia. One evening, another child in the same ward passed away before Elisabeth's eyes, leaving an indelible impression that shaped her future. Death, she realized, was neither an abstract idea nor a distant event that happened only to other people. It was a reality embedded in the fabric of daily life, deserving of serious investigation. Later, as a medical student, Elisabeth grew troubled by how doctors often shied away from conversations about death. She observed that terminally ill patients were at times treated as mere objects deemed beyond the scope of active care once their prognosis was confirmed. Driven by equal parts compassion and curiosity, she made it her mission to understand what dying people underwent physically, psychologically, and spiritually. Little did she know that her determination would lead to groundbreaking insights and also earn her a reputation among colleagues as someone who entertains strange or mystical ideas. Yet she remained steadfast, believing that any credible field of medicine must study the full trajectory of human life, including its end. When Elisabeth began her work, hospitals commonly avoided open dialogue with dying patients, partly out of fear that acknowledging impending death might extinguish hope. Doctors and nurses, trained to preserve life at all costs, hesitated to engage in honest discussions about the inevitability of loss. Kübler-Ross challenged this norm by offering to sit with terminally ill patients, allowing them to talk freely about their experiences, regrets, fears, and sometimes comforting visions. Rather than dismiss these visions as hallucinations or delirium, she meticulously documented them, gradually assembling an archive of interviews that pointed to a broader, shared phenomenon. Many patients recounted encounters with deceased loved ones who appeared in moments of lucidity. They described seeing these figures bathed in light or standing at the foot of their beds, offering reassurance and sometimes telling them that it was not yet their time to cross over. Over the months and years, Elisabeth amassed so many consistent stories that she began to suspect there was more at play than confused mental states or medication side effects. The most striking cases involved people who perceived details they should have been unable to perceive while unconscious or clinically dead, including the names of doctors who had entered the room, the layout of operating theaters they had never physically seen, and the precise movements of medical personnel during resuscitation. Determined to probe these mysteries further, Dr. Kübler-Ross widened her research. She interviewed individuals from diverse cultural and religious backgrounds, analyzing whether personal beliefs influenced near-death visions. To her surprise, there were surprising overlaps. Christian, Muslim, Hindu, and non-religious patients alike spoke of encountering an all-encompassing love and peace beyond earthly existence. Though the symbolic language each person employed differed, some spoke of angels, others of spiritual guides or ancestors. The underlying tone remained strikingly similar. Many described entering a realm suffused with an otherworldly radiance, hearing harmonious music, or feeling an unshakable sense of unity with everything around them. These uncanny similarities posed a challenge to straightforward neurological explanations. Some researchers theorized that a lack of oxygen in the dying brain could trigger hallucinations, such as the famous tunnel of light. Yet these physiological explanations could not easily account for cases involving blind individuals, especially those blind from birth who reported seeing vivid colors, physical objects, and even the faces of bystanders during their near-death encounters. nor did they clarify how patients witnessed events in distant hospital rooms or recognized staff members they had never seen previously. One of Elisabeth's strongest convictions was that no person truly dies alone, even if physically unaccompanied in their final moments. In hundreds of near-death stories, patients mention the presence of companions from beyond the grave, family members, close friends, or other beloved individuals who had passed. Notably, none of these reports involved living relatives, even when the dying person had fervently wished to see them. Children who hoped to see their parents at the moment of death instead encountered deceased grandparents or siblings, which strongly suggested that these visions were not simply projections of conscious desire. Elisabeth often cited a poignant example of a girl who saw a brother she never knew existed. When her father visited, he was overwhelmed to learn that she had met a deceased son he and his wife had lost years earlier. The family had kept this tragedy secret, never revealing it to their surviving daughter for fear it might upset her. Yet here she was, vividly describing a boy who guided her, explaining that he had been waiting for her to arrive. This case powerfully illustrated the complexity of near-death visions, defying the notion that dying individuals create elaborate fantasies based solely on prior knowledge or longing. Many who came back from these brink-of-death moments reported lasting transformations. Overcoming the pain and disability of their physical conditions, they discovered a new appreciation for life. Some patients claimed they had lost all fear of death, having felt the pure relief of shedding the body to dwell briefly in a state of peaceful awareness. They spoke of encountering a feeling of love so profound it changed their priorities, relationships, and perspectives forever. In some instances, survivors expressed sadness at returning to their earthly forms. They admitted that, while grateful to be alive among family and friends, they missed the indescribable serenity and cosmic unity they experienced beyond the physical realm. Returning meant resuming the burden of illness, fear, and limitations. Doctors who had revived these patients were often astonished at how such experiences altered individuals long after their hospital stay, suggesting the near-death phenomenon was not merely a fleeting trick of the brain. Naturally, many scientists questioned the idea that something of the human self could persist outside the body. Several argued that cultural conditioning might shape near-death reports, or that the surge of brain activity right before death triggers a kaleidoscope of memories and visions. Yet the relentless consistency of these accounts encouraged Dr. Kübler-Ross to maintain an open mind. She insisted that serious study required both skepticism and empathy, and that purely physiological theories did not comprehensively address all the evidence. Her stance attracted considerable criticism from mainstream psychiatry. Some peers accused her of sacrificing scientific rigor for sentimental storytelling. Others, however, recognized the importance of her patient-centered methods. These methods allowed people to speak openly of experiences they had once hidden for fear of ridicule. By giving a voice to the dying, she highlighted a dimension of human consciousness that traditional medicine often ignores. Though no universal consensus emerged, her influence encouraged new generations of researchers, chaplains, psychologists, and sociologists to approach end-of-life care with greater compassion and curiosity. Elisabeth's collected findings imply that, for many individuals, death may be less of a cessation and more of a transition. If the soul, what some call the immortal self, does persist beyond the physical form, then the final heartbeat is simply the doorway to another mode of being. In her writing, she used the analogy of a cocoon splitting open, allowing a butterfly to emerge into a wider world. The breaking of the cocoon may seem like destruction from one perspective, but from another, it is liberation. Time and again, she recounted how people felt physically weightless and free while observing their own bodies below them. Pain and frailty slipped away, replaced by an unshakable sense of clarity. They could sometimes recall unspoken words between others present in the hospital, suggesting an expanded awareness that defies conventional boundaries of the five senses. These stories, taken collectively, depict a dynamic interplay between earthly life and an uncharted realm that remains mysterious but deeply reassuring to those who have encountered it. In reflecting on her years of work, Dr. Kübler-Ross emphasized that near-death experiences consistently highlight two central themes: love and consciousness. Love appears as a force capable of linking individuals across physical separation and even time itself. Consciousness, meanwhile, emerges not as a mere byproduct of brain function but as something that can survive beyond bodily death. This perspective disrupts deeply ingrained assumptions about the nature of life, prompting us to think differently about what it means to be human. For some, this challenge to traditional scientific thinking is thrilling, an invitation to broaden our horizons and incorporate new forms of evidence. For others, it is unsettling, inviting questions about spirituality and the afterlife that may seem impossible to verify. Yet Dr. Kübler-Ross believed that compassionate inquiry and diligent documentation could bring us closer to the truth, even if we never gain full certainty while alive. Dear friends, thank you for watching these reflections on Elisabeth Kübler-Ross' extraordinary work. If you found this exploration meaningful, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Thank you once again, and have a truly wonderful day.